Today we're going to talk about grief and family arguments. There are many reasons why there are family arguments when there's been the loss of a loved one. Some of the reasons could deal with trauma that's been left unhealed, offenses that were never discussed or forgiven, anxiety about the future, disagreements over memorabilia. Those are some of the common reasons why families will argue and have disagreements during a time of grief and loss. Let's deal with the first one, trauma that's left unhealed. In death, some families will feel free to talk about the pain or the trauma inflicted by the family member that passed away or by surviving family members. This is a time when the family has come together to memorialize, to begin to plan for the inevitable burial of their family member. And because of that, some people feel like, well, now that they have the family's attention, or because now that person has passed away and they're not afraid of hurting that person, or they're not afraid of holding back, or they feel that that is the appropriate time, now this is when family secrets are told and trauma that's been undealt with, unspoken about, unhealed will show up. And for the other family members, that may be too much for them. Family members are likely to be expressing how they feel in very different ways. Some family members will become unsupportive, angry, and even view the person that's sharing this as selfish. And other family members will feel overwhelmed because this is a time where they're emotionally vulnerable, and taking on this new information and not being able to know what to do with it leaves them feeling vulnerable and upset and almost sideswiped because this was not something that they expected to hear. And so then the person who's been offended or traumatized member of the family will now think that other family members don't care. But in reality, it's not that they don't care, it's that some are having difficulty processing more pain on top of the grief that they're dealing with. And then others are uncertain how to handle this new information, because if the person who caused the trauma has passed, they don't know what it was to do with that, because they're trying to grieve the person that passed away, but now they're being upset because of the information that they're getting, and they're not sure what's right, what's wrong, and what to do in this present moment. And so when things like this happen, it makes it very difficult, and therefore the grieving process of a family turns into arguments, fights, and also sometimes people just shutting down and not talking to each other. Because there was trauma, the trauma has either been revealed or been shared, and now family members are left trying to both grieve and handle new information, or grieve and argue or refute that information at the same time. And it's actually causing for the family to become more divided than ever before. One of the other things that happens is that there were offenses, there were small offenses, tiny offenses, or large offenses that have happened over the life of the family, but because they've never been discussed, or maybe they've been discussed but never forgiven, now these things from the past are being pulled into the present as a result of the grief that's being experienced. And so smaller arguments now have the weight of grief and loss being tied to them, and they become bigger arguments. And whatever the offense is now takes on twice as much power because of the grief and the loss and the vulnerability and the pain that people are in. Things that might have been forgivable in the past now seem unforgivable because the people in the family are in pain as they're experiencing that. And so those who were carrying the offense are in more pain, and their offense seems even more justified than ever before. And those who are the cause of the offense are also feeling as if now they are being put on more pain, but more expectations, because someone wants to work through an offense that was done in the past, currently in the present, while the other person is trying to grieve. One of the other issues that we find that families have during this time that can lead to disputes or pulling away from each other is the anxiety about the future. They're not sure what's going to happen to the whole family right now because they're lacking answers. Because of the grief, because of the immediate loss, some family members are left feeling powerless to change things. And because of that powerlessness, they're now having greater anxiety, and that anxiety is being manifested in them being short-tempered and impatient with each other. Now let's deal with the next one. The next one is disagreements over memorabilia, over the things that were left behind. During the grief, emotions are sensitive and highly reactive. This is a time when the family, if they're not careful, will have tears, breaks, and divisions in the family fabric. The disagreements over who gets to keep what item can go to which family member, can cause siblings and relatives to not talk to each other for years. At the same time, this is when unity is needed the most, but the family is divided over who got what. And one of the things not considered is this division not only affects the immediate siblings or the immediate relatives, but it also affects the children, the grandchildren, the cousins, and other relatives pay the price of being denied relationship with each other because of the immediate family members who are disagreeing over things or over money. And this leads to generations being kept apart, isolated, and sometimes turned against each other because of what one sibling thought the other sibling should have got, or what they got and the other one didn't get. And now you have parents and other siblings feeling divided because the family's divided over the things or over money. So when we think about this, how do we begin to combat it? There are some key things that you want to try to do as much as possible. Number one is extend grace. Your family members need grace in this time just like you do. That to know that you're going to make mistakes, you're going to step on each other's toes, you're going to be reactive, you're going to say some things that you may regret. And this is a time more than ever to step back and allow people the grace to bounce back, to be forgiven, to make mistakes, but for those mistakes to not be held on over them for a lifetime. It's important in this time that you plan together. Be transparent. When people feel left out, they often will make up reasons why they're left out, and those reasons will be much more negative than the actual truth. And so you want to be able to plan together as much as possible and be transparent often. Even when you think you're being transparent, be more transparent. So that way, the people who are grieving differently and who are feeling like something may be up will know that nope, everything was done above board, was done truthfully, was done transparent way, so that there weren't questions brought up that could not be answered and people don't feel left out. It's also important that if someone is difficult to work with, consider a democratic way of deciding how to include them. You want to figure out how to give them a vote in what's being done. By finding a democratic way of working with other family members who may be difficult, there is an option of making sure that they're included even if they're not making decisions as quickly as other people, and that they can see that they had a say. Even if they were outvoted, they were still had a choice and they were able to vote. It's important to show respect to when you're trying to have discussions about something that you need to do and the other person's not on board or the other person's taking slower to process it. Show respect. Don't make it a personal attack. And we know that we're making a personal attack when we bring up the past, when we start calling people names like stubborn, when we talk about things that are not related to the decision that we're trying to make. So in order to show respect, to be inclusive, you want to stick to the facts, and you want to include other family members, not just the ones you agree with, when you're making decisions that's going to impact the whole family during this grieving process. It's important to note to be prepared to forgive. Forgive yourself, forgive other family members, because everyone's going to make mistakes during this time. There's going to be false assumptions. Some people may be short-tempered. Have a plan to get away during that time, to cool down, and to recover in the moments where tempers are high and emotions are flaring. And it's important to expect that everyone will be slightly emotionally off, emotionally dysregulated due to feelings of grief and loss. Give yourself and give other people more leeway to have time to bounce back, to recover, to collect themselves, and then to participate in what needs to be done for the family. Allow each person to grieve their own way, respecting their process in this time. The makeup of your whole family has shifted, and it's going to take time to adjust in grief and loss. Be patient when you can, and remember to be inclusive as much as you can when that person is available, or even if they're not available, allow them to know what's going on. Some people will shut down during this process, but try to find ways to keep them informed, maybe via voice message, a group family text, email. Some people will go into work mode, and they'll be extremely organized but not receptive to information from the other family members. Let them know that you want to help and that you need to help as part of your grieving process. And then consider what are your strengths and pick an area that you can help in utilizing your strengths. Other people will shut down, but remember to give them grace. This is how they handle emotional overload. Make sure that there is a hand extended to them so that when they're ready, they can rejoin the family. Let there always be a space at the table for them to come sit in their time. We don't always understand how other people may grieve because we grieve differently. But it's important to respect their process and let them know that there's always room at the table for them. At the proverbial family table, you always want to leave a seat open for someone to return so that the family can continue to thrive and to grow. So I just want you to consider some of these things to hopefully help make the grieving process a little bit easier and help protect the fabric of the family that remains so that you guys can grow together, so that the siblings, the grandchildren, the relatives, the extended family can continue to come together and grow together. Thank you for joining me.